Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. Everyone's a special guest because they take their time to join me in this show. And if you've been following along, I'm going through the affinity stones of deans. You know, I was like, you know, I'm trying to learn, and I got one dean, and that was all it took. And now I got more deans to share their stories. And I was like, you know, I have to have the dean of the College of Education and Human Development on here because as an alum of this program, I have to show love to the home team, I guess, as you'll say. And so I have great pleasure of having Dean Ingrid Guerrera Lopez. I really worked hard on that, English. We could talk about education and phonics. But I have this wonderful dean recently came to Mason to share her story and career and just, you know, her vision for this college. But before we get started, you know, Dean, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, it's good to be here, first of all. I'm really honored to have been asked to share my story here. Gosh, my background. So I am I'm an immigrant to this country. Okay. I came here as a child with a single parent with a lot of high hopes to really achieve a better life for myself and for my mother. I guess it was really my mother's dream. I just sort of went wherever she took me. But, you know, it's really nice to see how it's panned out because for a while there, it's hard to visualize how to move up beyond your circumstances when that's all that you see for yourself and the people around you.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
So where did you immigrate from? And, talk about that journey. Like, what age were you when you came to the United States?
So I was about 11, and we came from Ecuador, from South America. So my mother, I didn't speak English either. So my mom and I did not speak English. My mom didn't really know anybody, and it was quite the shock. But it was certainly good to be here. So I think we still had a lot of optimism about being here and what we could do here.
So you came from Ecuador to where?
So
there's a little trajectory of moving. Okay.
So we went to California. My mom did have some family there, and so we were there for a bit. But you know, it's difficult to be with extended family, so we did have to sort of venture out off on our own. So I think in that first year, we probably moved around, 8 times. I went to 6 different schools in 6th grade.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. But and then we were able to make it all the way to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Allentown, PA. I was the only Hispanic kid in the entire school.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. It was actually really interesting. All the kids were, you know, just very excited to have somebody from a different place. And, of course, they all wanted me to teach them the curse words in Spanish.
Yeah, wow. So I'm assuming, you know, first English as a second language. So you were taking ESL, and you were really were you involved in that? And what was the process of learning English as a second language?
You know, that was a long time ago. So
yeah.
I don't remember really taking ESL courses per se. Yeah. I do remember there was a teacher who would pull me through part of the day to work with her a little bit, but that was only in one of the schools.
Wow.
And then I think, you know, the precious thing about children is that they learn so much from their surroundings, whether formal instruction or not, they're going to learn what they see around. So I think you'll find that most kids have a relatively easy time learning the second language because, you know, with their peers and the activities and all of that. But I mean, I definitely remember having to stand in front of class doing book reports and not having an idea of what I was saying. I was literally just like
reading.
Yeah. And then like I just remember my face being all hot and red, and I was like, oh my God, like I have no idea what I'm saying, and neither do they, clearly.
I just can't fathom, like I'm trying to think, you know, like how malleable and how resilient children are and how resilient your story is. And the fact that you were doing full book reports and having this, like, I mean, was school, and we were talking about you're the dean of education. Was school a positive environment? Like you look forward to going to school growing up, or was it like I didn't want to go to school? How was that growing up? You know, the school environment, the feeling of going to school.
Yeah, I will say that my mother always instilled in me, like, education is so important. So I always knew that it was important. Did I enjoy it all the time? No, I didn't. So when I was in Ecuador, I mean, it was still, it was in the 70s. So
Right.
corporal punishment was still a thing. So no, I didn't enjoy going to school. And if you didn't have the right answer, either, being struck or, just being belittled.
Ruler to the knuckles or something.
Yeah, exactly.
My mom was Catholic church, so
Yeah, very similar.
she knew about that.
Very similar. But I will say I probably didn't have a full even in high school when things were tough and we, after Pennsylvania, we ended up moving to Miami where really I did my junior high and high school. And even when things got really difficult, I knew, like, man, I can't drop out. Like, I can't not, because this is my way to better things. So I always knew it didn't matter how tough, I need to get through it.
Oh, that was very powerful. So, like, and then I think about this, right? You had these different experiences in different pockets of the United States. I'm going to assume, and you can check me this, but Miami and Florida is very Latinx, Hispanic friendly.
Yes.
Was it more like you felt like you was in their vibe and more culturally surrounded by your people in Miami than other places in the United States?
Well, so that's really interesting because you'll ask any Hispanic, and we are a heterogeneous group in that we're so different depending on where you're coming from. So part of it was, I think it was easier for my mom because you had a lot of Spanish speaking people there. It was easier for her to find work, and for me it was cool. But like I went to a school that was primarily Cuban, for example, and so there's a different lingo and a different way to talk, and it was great. I was received with open arms, but it was definitely like, oh no, honey, you're going to have to learn how to talk with your hands, or you're going to have to do this and that, and so, but again, it became home for me. So I felt very much there, this sort of commonality of other people my age that were the children of immigrants, and the community felt very much like home. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think and I guess these environments of school, you don't realize how much we want to belong. Like, I'm a military brat, so when I got here in Northern Virginia, being that this is so DMV heavy, a lot of the kids could understand what the plight of being a military kid was like, right? Like moving a lot. So I think we still want to have connections with cultural, like lateral peers, right, that are below the surface of race, but maybe a cultural or that kind of upbringing. So I think I did some research, not really, you told me before this podcast, but you went all the way up to Michigan, right, for college, Wayne State, is that correct? Or is that for the master's or PhD program?
No, so I started my journey in community college, actually, in Miami.
Oh, in Miami, okay.
So, and then I went to FIU for about a semester or two, and then I always wanted to have, I shouldn't say I always wanted to, but as soon as I learned what that, like, college life was, it was like so foreign to me, but I wanted it so bad. And I had always, since I was like 16, worked, one or two jobs, try to get myself through school. And then I thought, you know what, I am going to go to Florida State. Like, how far away can I get from Miami at the time?
Tallahassee.
Yeah. I was like, pay in-state tuition, but go to a good college and I'll figure it out. Like, I've always figured it out. And I think, while it's difficult for a child not to have stability, the fact that I had to move, adapt, and learned, sort of learn new ways. Yeah.
It's resilience.
I felt like, I'll land on my feet. I've always figured it out, and this is not going to be any different. So it has been a huge strength, right? A huge thing that's been positive in my life. So, I went to Florida State and finished my undergrad and then completed my master's and PhD at Florida State. So when I went to Michigan, it was recruited as a faculty member.
So you left the great state of Florida to go up to the cold. So how was that navigating that space? You identify as a first gen student. How was that? You said you'll figure it out on your own, but like, what kind of, we still talk about familial support. Like, maybe your parents can't give you money or they can't navigate the resources, but just having them care about you going to college is
Yeah.
enough, right? So what was kind of the support that your mom gave you while you were going through navigating somewhere far away, Florida State?
Yeah, I'll say that it was challenging, but because I had gotten used to being responsible for myself, even since I was a kid, my mom had to work till like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So if I was hungry, I had to cook. If
Yeah.
my clothes were dirty, I have to. So I learned to be very self-reliant since I was very little.
Yeah.
And so I have to say that, looking back, I realized like I was in some ways very lonely. I didn't have that support. And it's not only as an adult that I was like, man, how did I even do it? But I got so used to thinking of myself as just like being by myself and for myself that I didn't realize how much I missed that familial support. But I did form great bonds with friends. And those friends and their families became a huge support for me. And to this day, I talk to my husband, who's got a very close relationship with his siblings and his family. And I try to explain to him how important my friends were at that time. And it's hard other than to, visualize them as sisters and brothers.
Family.
Yeah, exactly.
Family. No, I mean, that definitely means a lot. Were you involved in stuff at college? Like organizations, or you had to grind?
I didn't. I was just grinding all the time, quite honestly. I always loved sports, but my mom couldn't she couldn't make the commitment. So I didn't do sports, but I was engaged just, rec sports. I ended up just being friends with a lot of people who were either like, soccer players or swimmers.
I mean, you're in Florida. You're in like Athlete Central.
That's
like,
right.
I don't know. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you don't like football in Florida, I don't know what to say. Like, that's crazy.
Oh, it's great to love football when you're winning all the time.
Yeah. Did you go to a high school that like won a lot? I know you went to
No.
Florida State, though. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, but like
college.
Yeah, they're top notch. I don't that experience. So I always find this too with my, you're the, I think you and Dean Perry, like you had this trajectory of going into these unknown lands. Like she's a first gen student. So where was this thought of like, I'm going to be a doctor? How did that like spark, like continuing the academic pursuits and like,
Yeah.
so that's the part super fascinating for me is like you're the first, like you're going into new lands and stuff. How did that come about?
I'm going to be really honest with you and say that there was a part of me since I was very little that felt not enough.
Yeah.
That felt like I wasn't good enough. And, as I got older and became a teenager, it just sort of became this fire.
Like
right?
a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and especially just without getting into family dynamics, just kind of the relationship with my father's side of the family, which was, Latin America in many ways, especially at that time, but in some ways still now, is a very sort of caste kind of society. And so, at that stage, it was, the name and the financial and social status was a big thing. And so I wasn't allowed to be part of the accepted crowd because we were very humble and poor. So I felt like, man, one day I'm going to show you guys.
Yeah,
I am good enough, right?
I mean, I don't want to like minimize it. I'm like smiling because, like, I don't know about you. Like, I don't know if this is a systemic thing or against, but I have this invisible they sometimes too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna show them. And I was like, no one's even. There's no them. But it's like a chip on your shoulder, and you're like, you work really hard and stuff to achieve, and I could see that drive in you. So that's like this invisible. You're like, I'll show them when I walk across the stage, and you're like, no one's even there. Like, you like walk across graduation, you're like,
I know.
But it's a fire and it's a motivator for me.
And I did a lot of soul searching throughout my life. Like, it was really funny when I was going through college. I navigated all of the liberal arts because I started with like philosophy and even English, right? Because that critical thinking was there. But I did philosophy for a long time, and that was really helpful in just understanding the human condition. And then I moved on to psychology. So a lot of it was just me trying to understand myself. And, something happened in my 20s where I realized, like, who is they? Like, what happens if I stumble? Does that mean, like, somebody's going to be pointing the finger at me, or if I'm going to roll down all the way down to the bottom of the stairs, or I'm just going to, like, hit one bump, like one step, right?
Yeah.
And then it just started, it really at some point just turned into more of a purpose. Like, I want to do something meaningful, right? Like, I want to advocate for other people. Like, I want to make this a better place. And it sounds kind of cheesy.
No,
maybe.
it doesn't. No.
But
I get that.
But I feel so thankful because at the end of the day, I think it's that positive intent that creates your future, right? That creates sort of the life that you build for yourself. And to come at it from a place of I'm going to show them can only get you so far before it's just not really doing anything for you.
Yeah, because also like what I've learned when you say this they, it's so externally focused that like you're never going to be validated, right? Like
that's right.
No one's ever going to say like one day, oh, I was that they, and I'm so proud of you, right? Like it's not going to happen. So you have to have that intrinsic thing. And I love what you said. It was like eventually it turned to like, okay, I'm going to show them to more like I'm going to help others. That's going to be it, right? And by doing that, like I'm doing something that's aligned with my purpose. So when did that shift happen? And I'm assuming it's totally aligned with your pursuits of educational leadership. When did that kind of foster that? Like I'm going to help other leaders and stuff.
Yeah. So there was a part of me that always wanted to help others. So at some point I thought maybe I'll go into law because I want to advocate for those that don't have a voice. Like I want to be that person that helps them, move forward. And then it was just a matter of me finding how I worked with attorneys and I thought, maybe not for me, maybe not so much. And then I thought psychology, like I will help people because I was working through a lot of trauma myself. Yeah,
therapy and stuff. Yeah.
And then I thought, I actually had a professor, a psychology professor, pull me aside once and said, why are you doing? Like clearly he saw things, right? And I remember he said, with a PhD in psychology and back then 79 cents you could get a cup of coffee. The same cup of coffee that you could if you didn't have that PhD or if you were doing something else. So why that? And it just created a lot of self-reflection, but bottom line what we came to is like I can't adopt every patient. Like at that time I was still I was dealing through stuff, and then taking on additional stuff was probably not the route. But I took a course when I was in my master's program. My undergrad was in psychology, and then we had a professor from instructional systems design come and talk, and I thought, like, wait a minute, like, there's a lot of systems thinking, and I was always thinking, like, how is everything related, and what does this have to do with that, and how can you focus on this without looking at this other thing? And so that spoke to me. So I pursued my master's there. And in my master's program, I met wonderful Dr. Kaufman, who became probably the most important mentor in my life. And he said to me in class, I said, hey, would you like to be on my master's committee? I really love this class. And this class was about needs assessment and strategic planning. But his whole thing was about everything is a means to societal ends. Every organization is a means to societal end. And if they're not working in some coordinated way to make this a better place, then they're probably subtracting value.
So, like, if you look at it, now we can just jump to schools. Like, schools are means to societal ends. Like, schools should be access for learning, the societal upbent. We prepare people for the world of work and all those things. That's the actual mean for education or something, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like a systems approach to it,
right? And any like automobiles, like you're trying to help people get to where they need to go, whether it's to make a living, and you want to make sure that it's safe, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about anything, is there to make people's life better, not worse, and not indifferent, right?
Yeah, technology, everything, right?
Exactly.
Like you can look at a systems approach, like when you're building something or creating something or maintaining something, it should have a positive yield, positive outcome. But we also see sometimes where there's things, like you said, that either do a detriment or they're not progressing at all.
That's right. So if you think about every successful business, they're delivering something. There's a need. There's a societal need.
Yes.
Right. So Dr. Kaufman said, sure, I'll serve on your master's committee under one condition. And I said, what? He's like, that you stay for your PhD and you work with me.
Okay. He was finessing. He was trying to get that student worker. He was trying to get that research assistant.
But
that's awesome.
Your
that's
professor,
awesome.
your professor sometimes through the questions that you ask, like that inquiry and that, like, I know as a faculty member, I could see the desire in so many of my students to, like, not just to learn something, but to do something. And I think he recognized that in me. And a lot of times, it's upon us to help guide others who are sort of going through that trajectory that you might have gone through.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And I think the thing about it too is everyone, like, I've seen and heard from multiple leaders of mentors that saw things in them that they didn't see in themselves. I mean, that's the craziest thing. And then you're like, wake up one day and then someone's calling you a mentor and you're like, I just talked to you. Have you ever had a conversation with Dr. Kaufman and said how impactful and in his mindset, not say he downplayed it, but he's like, he didn't, did he like realize his impact or not?
I think he did. I hope he did. He actually passed just a few years ago, but he actually had a huge impact. When you work with somebody on your PhD degree, you work for for a number of years, and so I learned from him. He really became a parental figure for me. And he would launch me into doing things that would scare the heck out of me. I'd be like, oh, my God. Like, oh, by the way, we're going to have a delegation of 30 politicians from Argentina come, and you're going to show them our process for needs assessment.
I love that.
And I was like, me? Really? And then he would go, oh, and by the way, I'm going to be gone out of town, so you're going to do it on your own. Yes. I'd be like, oh, my God.
That's my man. I love that. He threw you in, trial by fire. But he trusted you, and he believed in you.
He trusted me, and I was like, I can't believe that I get to do this and that he trusts me to do this. And that went on for 2 decades until he passed, where he was always uplifting me and he was always telling others, like, oh, she's stellar, and she's like, he always advocated for me.
Yeah. I love it. I think I'm about to take a page out of the Dr. Kaufman book. Is if you're a mentee of mine, I'm just going to throw you in situations in a positive. I'm a believer in you, but like, hey, you can go up on stage, and I like that because I think I can see iterations of people doing that to me where like I ain't never done that before. They're like, you be all right. And then funny thing is like they'll minimize it to make you feel better, and then you realize you did it, and you're like, wow. And then now you're doing it over and over again, right?
That's right.
Like, you lived.
I think sometimes the story that we tell ourselves is not what others see. And I think if you come from difficult challenges where you can't remember a time where you didn't have difficulties or when you had it easy, it's hard to imagine a world where you would be in a different place. And so we learn also a lot vicariously by watching others who we identify with succeed.
Yeah. Yep.
But for me, there was no substitute for the evidence that I generated for myself, right? And so when he, for example, would put me in these really difficult situations, that pit in my stomach was me growing. Because if you're not feeling just a little bit of tension, you're just probably not growing to the level that you can.
It's like not terrifying. It's like butterflies. If you're actually nervous about it, it's good.
Exactly. So I just, over time of having so many different situations where I had the opportunity to prove to myself that, yes, I can do it, over time that you gain that confidence because you're like, man, how many times have I done things that I just wasn't sure that I could do? And then lo and behold, I could do it. And so after a while, that turns into confidence based on evidence, not confidence based on made up thoughts and wishful thinking.
Evidence-based confidence. I love it. That's a very researchy thing. Evidence-based confidence. And like if you do it, then you
heard it here first.
Yeah, we might have to coin that trademark. So then, obviously you get your doctorate, right? And I've learned, far in my process. Starting in my PhD process, that like not everyone that gets a PhD has to go into education, right? Like you be consultant, you whatever. So when you're getting your PhD, what made you want to stay in the realm of academia?
Again, I would say that Dr. Kaufman had a huge influence on that. I saw some of my colleagues go on to work in, big consulting firms.
Yeah, consulting firms.
It was a great program at Florida State, and so a lot of people were, off making a lot of money right off the bat. But I'll never forget Dr. Kaufman said to me, life is about maximum degrees of freedom. And if you want to have maximum degrees of freedom, I want you to consider going into higher ed, because with that, you could also do a lot of other things. You could do the consulting. You could do the special projects. You could do the speaking engagements. You can do so many things with that as your foundation. Yeah. Exactly. And so I thought, okay, like I wasn't, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to make enough to make a decent living.
No, you
right?
see the money. Yeah, you see I see that all the time when I see these kids get engineering degrees, and I'm like, I should have done another degree.
I know. And it's funny because it's like, I remember like all the years and years of paying my student debt. I was like, man, I thought I was going to be rolling in the money once I got my PhD. It doesn't quite work that way. But he was right in that I got to do so much. I got to see the world really as an academic, working with a lot of different people. I didn't do K-12 work myself. I did a lot of human and institutional capacity building and development, so talent development, performance improvement. Yeah. And so I was able to do it with a lot of the international development agencies. And it's been such an amazing experience, all because I remember thinking in the back of my head, I could make more money right now, or I could make a little less money, but really think about what quality of life do I want for the long term.
The freedom early.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm on that plan. So I'm going to tell my wife that when I'm not making that money. So what, you saw the job, let's say I don't know how people see dean, see job title. Do they put dean postings on? When you saw Mason, what attracted you to come to George Mason? What was the allure of an institution? And understanding, I know that you're sharing cross-disciplinary, right? It's not a PhD in education. You got a PhD in something else. What was still attracting to a college that's education?
So my degree area is within the broader education, College of Education. So at Wayne, when I was at Wayne State University in Detroit, I always got engaged. Well, part of a faculty member's careers is not just the research and the teaching, but also service. And so
so
I was very interested in the promotion and tenure committees, and I ended up just getting involved because of the nature of my work. I worked a lot in an interdisciplinary setting with a lot of other colleagues, and so I think I just got to know a lot of different processes and the way that things work and how we look across disciplines. And so I think that also gave me exposure. So, for example, our by this time I had been at Wayne State for many, many years. And one of the provosts, I think, just got more and more familiar with me and my work and my approach. And at one point there was an opportunity for an interim dean at the graduate school. And by this time, again, I probably had been at Wayne State at least 15 years already. But, you do good work. You try to be an objective, fair-minded person. You try to look at the evidence. And I think, you start to build a reputation for the kind of thoughtful person that you want to be, right? So I think that was one of the things that led to the opportunity for the interim dean position, which, of course, it wasn't a unilateral decision. Yeah. But I think the way that I carried myself in my work and my approach to things, I think was helpful in, getting a group of colleagues and organization leaders to say, I think she is the right fit for that position. And I didn't have any desire to be an administrator. I kid you not. I was so happy doing my faculty work because I could go and do this amazing needs assessment for the World Bank in Solomon Islands or Samoa or Vietnam or wherever I was. I loved doing that work. But for that particular position, I thought, it is a systems-oriented view because I'm not going to be working just within one college or one discipline. I'm really going to be looking at graduate education holistically across, the university, and that was interesting to me. It was interesting to me to address challenges of interdisciplinarity, of improving or streamlining things that as a faculty I saw as opportunities. So I was very thankful to have that position, but I knew that it was going to be interim, and I was fine with that. It was just, to me, like everything else, I saw as a learning opportunity that was going to help me grow And I didn't know what the final destination was, but I know all of these pieces are going to get me closer. And so when that, I don't know, couple years, year and a half were done, I was going to go back to my college. And so I think I was back at my college or prepping to go back to my college, maybe for about a week. And then, again, I was asked to serve as interim dean of my own college now because of a transition in leadership that then I think, led to that other opportunity.
I love it. Accidental leadership.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, I'll step in when I need to.
And I guess my main point is focus on adding value, right? On your mission and how you want to leave things, no matter what things are and where you are, leave things better than when you got there. And good things will follow, right? Gotcha. I mean, within reason, right? Like I'm not going to become an astronaut just because I'm going to, go to a museum or anything.
Or realistic expectations. Like I'll leave something better, but I'm like, I ain't going to like solve the most world hunger completely, but I can make sure.
But you can exactly.
Or make sure a school at least gets some food.
You can contribute.
Like
you can contribute.
Like a scalable purpose.
And so, that was sort of the last position that I was in before having somebody send me the opportunity here at Mason. And I, Wayne State, I loved Midtown Detroit, all of the Big D. I love Detroit. Yeah. And so I hadn't considered leaving, but when someone said to me, you should really look at this this university. They're like growing really fast. They're doing amazing things. Wayne State is also the most diverse campus in that state, and that was something that was appealing to me.
The parallels.
And then I also saw the equitable student outcomes, and I thought that's really cool because we are diverse, but our outcomes don't look like that. And it was just the culture. I mean, I made it to the interview, and I got to talk to people, and there's just a sense of like anything's possible here, and we're moving forward, and like
the vibe check.
Yeah, the vibe was definitely my vibe.
And also, you have to like I said, in that position, most times, I mean, you could be just as happy where you were, so it had to be a significant. They had to significantly impress you to make a leap like that, right? Because you're like, I don't have to go nowhere; I can stay where I'm at. So you had your spidey sense up of their commitment to things, diversity, and their like the. I always like that. What I tell our students is, even when you have the desire to get a new job, whatever, still understand that like you are in a position of somewhat power and authority to evaluate your values and say, hey, does this organization align with my values? I don't have to take this. We had to sometimes understand social economically, like someone got to take a job, just take a job.
Yeah.
But still, like while you're taking that job you really don't like, you still have to assess, does this organization align with my values?
It matters, right?
Yeah, it does
because you're willing to put in so much or share so much of yourself for an organization whose mission you believe in. And it's really difficult to do that if you don't believe in your organization's mission. If you don't feel like this is not my thing, right? So that's really important. I think at the end of the day, it was such a good choice. I'm so happy I'm here, and it's sometimes it's hard to believe that I haven't been here for a long time.
Yeah, did you join during the pandemic?
No, after. So this July it'll be 2 years.
Okay, I mean time flies. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm so
I know.
Post-pandemic,
time is just weird.
I ain't gonna lie. I don't know if you remember. I was like I'm like now getting more involved in alumni stuff and all that. I do remember when they made an announcement. I looked you up on LinkedIn. I said, "Hi, my name is Philip Wilkerson." I don't know if you read an email. I was so excited, and then I think I saw a video that you did, and I was just so impressed about. You said the word diversity in your like welcome video, and I was like, "That's it, done." I love it, and such a good spirit. So, this is my last question, and then we'll go to my other segment. But like, if like you said, the systems means to societal end, which I love. As the dean and as the dean of this school, what is your means to a societal end for this position? Like your one notch, like you said, not going to change the whole world, but my one notch of leaving this organization better. What's that one for and not the whole Mason, but the college of education?
Yeah. So, that's been work that I've been doing actually with the faculty and staff here. I see my role as a facilitator of the amazing work our faculty and staff and students are doing. And so we've been engaged in college-wide conversations over the last year, really thinking about, what is the common mission that brings us together. And so what you'll see in there is this is a really special group of academics, practitioners, educators, but we're really looking to make a positive impact through evidence-based practices in the Commonwealth. And it's, through those transdisciplinary partnerships. So that means that we're open to working across disciplines, but also across kinds of institutions. A couple of big initiatives. One of the initiatives that we have is a research practice partnership where we have come together with the school divisions across Northern Virginia to really work together and prioritize what are those common challenges that we're all seeing in K-12. How do we work together? We'll take your lead, you prioritize. Let us put ourselves at your disposal to make progress on those things that are really critical. And so that's just an example of us being a means to societal ends, right? Whether it's making sure that we have enough teachers, whether it's making sure that, we're thinking about the well-being of our students and our educators and our staff, making sure that there is a robust educational leader pipeline, all the things that we want to be there to support.
I mean, I may be biased, but the counseling program at George Mason changed my life. I'm a big
great.
You always have an ambassador there. I was a lost soul, and I took these classes, and that's how I found career counseling and all that stuff. But also I found the inner working on myself, right? The helping all these, like almost I was getting free therapy because it was a counseling program, and so
that's a thing for medical students and psychology and counseling students. A lot of what they learn, the first thing they do is apply to themselves, right?
Of course.
So sometimes we sort of auto-diagnose all kinds of symptoms, but we have an amazing counseling program in our faculty.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Steen is my mentor. I got to put him out there.
I just talked to him this morning.
He's awesome. I walked with him this morning. Yeah, like I said, that inner work that you were talking about, I think that's also the transformational process of education for me, is that compared to, reach one, teach one, but also understanding, for you to be an educator in any space, I think that you need to work on yourself and have this, instructional mindset of how would I reach myself or teach myself to pour into someone else. And so, I can't say more than, enough about that program. Shout out to Chung and BMAC. They're the ones that took a chance on me. But that program was transformative. And so, I think I'm so happy that it's under the college education because they were connected.
Yeah, they're amazing. And just like you've had that positive experience with that program and those amazing faculty, all of our programs and our faculty are making that kind of a difference for their students. And it's such an honor for me to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I love the diversity of that because I work very closely with sports and rec and hospitality and tourism. And you're like, why would that be on their education? I don't know, whatever. But I think the faculty in those programs are just the real life practitioners. They're bringing their experiences to the classroom. I mean, you see they go above and beyond what they're trying to do for their students. And I don't know, it's just a very special place. So that's why I wanted to get you on this podcast. I wanted to show all this love to college education.
Well, I'll tell you very quickly. You asked, why are they under the College of Education? Because we're education and human development. So we're really focused on not just the education piece. We're working with learning and, well-being across the lifespan. So
hospitality and tourism, is it focusing on the well-being of people in a space, like a venue, right? Is that kind of, it's hospitality, right? And I get that. I'm actually not even arguing. I totally support that the humanistic experience about people being welcome into a space is a well-being thing, right? That's what you think about. And then sports and rec is their health,
I would see as learning and growth and well-being and across a lot of different spaces, right? So if you think about recreation, that's another big part of, human development. It's just as important as many other things. So I think globally, all of our programs are, trying to really enhance people's well-being.
Have you ever, and this is maybe somewhere else, have you ever had to kind of, let's say, defend it or keep school? This makes sense. I think it makes sense because I work here, but as like the outsider to keep programs at certain, and as a dean, do you have to like do that to like justify things?
I don't. I mean, I would say that some people find it interesting, like, oh, well, gee, I wouldn't expect, rec or sports. But in fact, the colleges of education and human development look a little different across the country anyway.
Yes,
like kinesiology is very typically a part of the College of Education as well.
Okay.
So I think that there's, variability across the country, and this just happens to be, how we're set up, and for us, it makes sense.
It makes sense. I love it. So this is the part I lied. It's called Shot for Shot. You get to ask any random question. I like to ask a random question. You want to go first? I'll go first.
Okay, you go first.
All right, so I'm unofficially the mayor of Mason. I mean, self-appointed. And so if I was the mayor of Mason and I had to solicit your support as a voter for me, what would you want me, what would you want from me as the mayor of Mason as it relates to the college education?
So I think, continuing to be a good role model for our students, making sure that you're also... we have a lot of mission-driven careers, so not every student, typically what a teacher and a nurse and a doctor do, but we have so many other progressive programs, modern programs that many students would know. So I'd love for you to just kind of increase the profile of the wide range of our programs.
Well, there we go. So if you're any alum of George Mason that has a various experience in the college education, I'd love to have you on the show to elevate your career so that you can show how diverse a degree from this program can take you. Because really, I ain't going to lie, I never thought that going into a counseling program was going to have me working at a career center. You never see that, right? So, okay, my question for you. Like I said, you have been in very sports-heavy places. California, very known for, I think they're all like good football places too, right? Like California has really good football, Florida has very good football, and then Michigan has really good football too.
Yeah.
Which place has the best football in your opinion, and why?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just modify the question slightly and say where I have loved football,
the
most, has been at Florida State.
I can say.
There's just no substitute for being a college student, rooting for your team. I can't remember how many times I lost my voice. It was just incredible. So I really enjoyed being a sports fan when I was at Florida State.
Okay, and this is my second one. What is your favorite Florida State Seminole memory? Sports one.
Sports. I think it definitely I can't remember what year, but I think we made it to the Sugar Bowl. And just, going with all my buddies and going over to, where were we? We're somewhere in Louisiana, or somewhere. Gosh, it was the college days. I had a lot of fun. I can't remember exactly. But
was it Chris Winkie?
I don't remember, but I just
remember. I love football. So
I just remember the trip as well. Since we were talking about sports, right? I should probably say my actual PhD graduation was quite memorable, but since we're on the topic of sports.
Yeah, what's that? You got a story for that?
Well, I almost didn't make it to my PhD, and my friends and I had, partaken in celebrating the day before, and I think we all almost overslept. And
for what championship? What is this?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about for my actual graduation.
Oh, I was thinking about, who won there? What was that? Okay.
I don't remember. I just remember my friend's mom calling and saying, "What are you guys doing there? Make sure that you get there." Of course,
you love sport. Oh, you're a sport. Okay, we're gonna have to go to a tailgate. We're gonna have to go real football. One of my ultimate memories again is I got to go to another SEC football game.
Yeah,
because I've never seen football on that scale. Virginia got it, but this has been great. I love it, and I'm gonna have to look up. I'm gonna have to go down the rabbit hole with what Sugar Bowl was that, and I'll text you or Teams you and let you know which one I found. But this has been great, and so now this is the part of the show to elevate, everything that you want to share. So shout outs, so show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs. These are things that you want to elevate visibly to the listeners, so that I'll make sure to put in the show notes.
I mean, definitely a shout out to all of our College of Education and Human Development faculty. They're doing such amazing work. I'm so proud to be a part of them. Our staff, where would we be without their partnership? Really appreciate everything that they're doing. And our students they're the best.
They are.
They're the best. So really just thankful. The college is what it is because of them. So I want to make sure I have a shout out to them.
A shout out to the alum because they're doing big things.
And the alum, of course. You guys are representing us so well. And we appreciate people like you who continue to do good things and make us look good.
Well, I was thinking about that chip on my shoulder. The one chip on our shoulder that kind of was like, Wheats did this. I was like, if you go to any surrounding county in the DMV, like, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, all that, I said, I'm going to go with a strong 60% of them got a degree from Mason. And I was like, that's the cocky part. I was like, we run education in Northern Virginia. And I said that.
Well, actually, we do. We have 1/3 of the teachers are Mason graduates, and about half of the educational leaders are Mason alums.
You're not surprised. So. I could just drop a name of a high school like Hayfield. Shout out to my boy Enrique. Like half their counseling staff is from Mason. So we're doing big things, and we're going out systems. This college is a means to societal end, influencing education in the Northern Virginia area. So this has been great, and I'll definitely make sure I put all the resources for the college in the show notes. But is there any parting words or anything you'd like to share before we end today?
Just really thankful to be invited and share a little bit of my story, and just really thankful that you're doing something like this, because even if just one person hears this and takes something away that's positive, and it just either changes their trajectory or enhances it one more, I think it is worth it. So thank you for doing this for the community.
Shoot, you are in my brain from what I started. I always remember I was like, if only one person listened, I did it. I made it, Mom. So Positive Filter listeners, please thank you for listening to this episode. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for his work combating food insecurity across the world. Additionally, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider sending up Pats for Patriots to someone to elevate their day, send kindness, and make them feel good about being here. Listen to this episode, share this episode, give it a rating or review on Apple or Spotify. That helps elevate the visibility of us. But thank you so much for listening, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.